Vogel had called it a counterpunch, and I think that's exactly what we saw happen because of the first half that Book had. Like he went off for 23. The Lakers send double teams, traps, blitzes, all kinds of attention at him. Well, guess what? That opens up the two-man game with KD and Beal. That opens up Nurk in the post. It opens up everything else for everybody else. And so that's why it was good to see, because as much as we think of these guys as superstars, being willing to set screens and do kind of the dirty work to make their lives easier, that's a huge thing. And that's why I'm so excited to see them get more reps and build that chemistry, because these guys are interchangeable in terms of their skill sets. Like, they're able to do it all.
Gerald wrote an article today over at PHNX.com talking about signs of progress that we got from last night's win over the Lakers. We're going to dive into them here a little bit. First and foremost, we'll talk about using Bradley Beal as a screener. How does this help give Phoenix a leg up on the competition in certain situations?
Yeah, we talked about it on the show a little bit last night, and Flex and I were watching some clips back today before the show, and there was back-to-back, it felt like, sequences in the third quarter where they had KD initiate the offense. Beal comes up, sets a screen, he slips the screen, KD throws him the bounce pass, and because of the spacing that they had on the baseline, the low man didn't come up in time. Beal got back-to-back wide open mid-range jumpers. And those were just two examples from the game that led directly to scores. Like, they're really good about using Beal or Grayson Allen and even Booker, who's another willing screener, in some of these small actions to create mismatches, to get whoever is on Grayson onto the ball handler and let them go to work that way. It's a really big thing to have. And I know last year with the Wizards, Bradley Beal experimented a lot more with being used as a screener. He's actually in the 74th percentile this season in terms of his effectiveness as a roll man in those situations. So it's not, he's not some elite screening guy, but he is a guy that's capable of making plays when you slip him that pass. And that's a huge thing to have, because we always think about, okay, it's got to be a Nurkic setting the screen. They have a lot of options that Frank Vogel said the other day when I asked him about it. We haven't even tapped into our small screening actions to create those mismatches. And because Bradley Beal, Grayson Allen, Devin Booker are all effective screen setters, rollers, playmakers out of those situations, it makes your offense that much more dynamic, especially when you get more reps together to build on those types of things.
As a guard, I know I really enjoyed setting screens because I could always draw a foul, because some guys would just try to run you over. B, I felt like I had more flexibility in literally directly reading what the defense is going to try to do when I set that screen, right? Because if they drop, then I'm popping out to the three. If they try to go high and follow the player, then I can just roll and I get the open bucket. So like, I felt like that did free me up a lot more than having the ball and going off the pick and roll. So I actually love this for Bradley Beal, because again, you're just trying to get these guys going in some way, somehow. And being a screener and getting involved and getting hit, it's kind of like a quarterback, like when they first get hit in the game, that's like, okay, we got the jitters out. We're playing. Same thing with the screen. And so that's perfect.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I played the guard position too. And I love setting the screens because you had all the options. And it causes chaos. There's a bit of chaos. And you can kind of slip. It's like finding a soft spot in the defense when you set that zone. And if you're a shooter, that's a good thing. Now, we saw those two clips, G, right? You broke them down. I mean, these were shots that, like, Eric can hit. And I did that for a reason, brother, because you want to throw shades on Nick Wright.
It's just like even Eric's bum ass.
Common L. I love you, dog. You my boy. I got you, dog. So no, I mean, it was so open, though. I mean, it was like, that's Brad Beal getting a 6-foot pull-up jumper with, like you said yesterday, Anthony Davis could grab the net. He was nowhere close. And when you see that and you realize it's just the beginning, they're just starting to tap into that. Yeah, it's going to be fun to see that dynamic build up.
Vogel had called it a counterpunch, and I think that's exactly what we saw happen because of the first half that Book had. Like, he went off for 23. The Lakers send double teams, traps, blitzes, all kinds of attention at him. Well, guess what? That opens up the two-man game with KD and Beal. That opens up Nurk in the post. It opens up everything else for everybody else. And so that's why it was good to see, because as much as we think of these guys as superstars, being willing to set screens and do kind of the dirty work to make their lives easier, that's a huge thing. And that's why I'm so excited to see them get more reps and build that chemistry, because these guys are interchangeable in terms of their skill sets. Like, they're able to do it all. So having a guy like Beal who can be effective in those spots off the ball and on the ball, it's a big thing to have.
Yeah. Well, and it gives you so much more opportunity too, like when the defenses kind of switch up their game plan against you, right? You have other things to turn to, where in the past on this Sun squad, it's always been mostly prior to Chris Paul joining the squad, it was Devin was pretty much your only option in a lot of these situations. How the tables have turned, right? How the turntables, whatever it is.
Turntables.
But the fact that Frank Vogel is saying that we haven't even scratched the surface with this means they're going to be putting in a lot more emphasis on how they utilize all three of these guys and everyone else who's out there on the court and shares the court with them in a way that's going to be so invaluable for this team and could be really freaking fun for all of us.
For sure, for sure. And you could sit there, and there was a guy in the comments that said, yeah, but they did it against the bum-ass Lakers. I'm like, okay, cool, but it's still bum-ass Lakers that they lost 2-3 times before. And so you saw progress in terms of last night compared to the last 3 games. Like, and you can't take that away. Like, they did things in that game with similar personnel for the Lakers that they weren't able to do in the first 3 games. That's just a fact. So that means that they adjusted, they looked at the tape, they figured out some things that they could do against the Lakers, and they took advantage of it. That's what good teams are supposed to do. And again, we're talking about building steps, right? Or stepping stones. There you go. And every little piece of progress, no matter what the competition is, takes you to that next step. It's like, it's like a video game. You got to pass the levels. And that's what they're trying to do right now. I really do like the approach. Yes, it's against the Lakers, and the Lakers weren't great last night. Sure, whatever. But again, you can't take that away from the Suns, because they did expose them quite easily.
Yeah, they beat their ass. Like, they were up by 30, and the Lakers are the 12th ranked defense in the NBA.
Exactly.
So as much as they are a subpar team overall, it's mostly because of their offense more than anything. They're still a pretty good defensive team, and that's what I liked, is the Suns tore them to shreds.
Yeah. Y'all, like, what's going on now, man?
Give me a second.
What's going on
We're
now,
gonna have
man?
to revisit.
So here's the
Go ahead.
We'll come
So
back
no,
to it.
here's the thing too, that it's getting a little frustrating. The Suns are working their way into things. Oh my God. The Suns are working their way into things. And I'm getting a little bit tired. I'm getting a little tired with this narrative when the Suns beat a team that's not like, oh, but it was only that. That's got to stop, man. You play who's in front of you, right? And if you lose to that team, it's the end of the world. But when you beat the team, it's like, well, they weren't good. Well, you're not going to play the Celtics and the Bucks and the Nuggets every damn night. You got to play who's in front of you. So, like, we're going to play Portland on Sunday. If the Suns win by 30, I don't want to hear, but it was Portland. Like, that's getting old, because other teams do that. OKC did that to Portland yesterday. Did anybody in this office say, oh, but it was the Portland Trailblazers? No.
Yeah, but that was
that was nasty.
that was
62 points.
That was insane. Yeah.
It was 62 points, and it was like, yo, the Thunder beat the hell out of them. But I'm just saying, we got to stop with this. Like, this narrative every night of, just a couple weeks ago, it was Houston's pretty good. Orlando is pretty good. And then when we beat them, it was like, well, they're not that good. And it's like, come on, man, you can't have it both ways. Stop moving the goalposts. They play who they play.
I understand that, and I'm on board with it with majority of the teams in the NBA, but like the bottom 10, I'm not. Like, I'm not in the sense of like, okay, when we lose to the Spurs and or Portland, I think it's valid to have some feelings about that loss.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because you're expected to win those games. Yeah. I'm not saying that you take away from a win when you do beat those teams or anything like that, but when you lose to them, it's absolutely different losing to Portland or the Spurs than it is to losing to
Clippers.
OKC or the Clippers.
Right,
yeah, there's a big difference.
But that's the whole point too, is like, why are we diminishing wins when we've lost to teams like that, and when we've gotten a grand total of 127 minutes on the court this season with the big three? Like, we should be thankful that they're kicking lesser teams' ass right now, because that's how you build continuity. That's how you get to cohesion, like we've been talking about.